Welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. We talk about TV shows. The year is 2020, and the name of the show is Babylon 5.
You want me to do the music?
You've done it every other time recently, so I left it open for you.
I don't know. I don't know if I could do it. I can't. I listened to the opening score in much detail, and I can't quite figure out how to do it. It's
Okay.
not as clear of a theme because it goes up and down a lot.
Okay. Well, we're here, right? This is season 1, episode 14. It's called TKO. That was a shitty version of the intro, but you know what? It's the worst episode of the show, so it deserves the shittiest intro. The infamous boxing one. Although actually watching it again, he is a boxer, but technically what we see in the episode is more of a mixed martial arts. But that, whatever. Doesn't really change anything in terms of my opinion on the episode. I think the first time I distinctly remember my main rap critique for this episode when I watched it the first time was that it's an episode of 2 B plots and no A plot. Mm-hmm. And it feels that way the entire time. And don't get me wrong, I think the actual B plot, which is the Ivanova plot, I do have some problems with it, but I do think there's a couple of things I like about it too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
The main plot with Walker Smith, the friend of Garibaldi. Do you know what's funny? We joked before about how sometimes early on in the show there was maybe too many episodes back to back with a character showing up who knows someone on the station, and they do it maybe a few times too many, but then it slowed down. This one has 2 of them who get off the ship and are they've met each other and they're like, oh, nice talking to you on the ship. Yeah, you too. And then they both go off to their separate Garibaldi and Ivanova plot lines.
Right.
Which is really funny to me. It's almost like a wink at this point. Like, hey, yeah, we know this is silly, but hey, whatever.
We'll just exaggerate it.
It's funny. But yeah, the boxing plot with Walker Smith, who wants to get into this alien martial arts ring because he'll be the first human to ever do so, because his boxing career was ruined by a corrupt promoter who took his career away from him and framed him for
disgraced.
Yeah, for juicing basically, because he wouldn't take a bribe to throw a fight because he believed in himself and he wasn't going to do that. He has integrity, so he wants to get into this thing, and he earns the respect of the aliens by the end because it's a draw.
Mm-hmm.
Done. There you go. That's the whole thing. That's basically.
I wasn't sure exactly what I didn't like about it for the most part, but there's an alien that approaches the boxer and says, "You humans think you could just do whatever you want. You make fun of our culture, you insult us, but now you want to be a part of it and be recognized. But no, you're not. We're not going to let you disgrace this too." He's kind of right. It's kind of like the human is the one that can beat everybody so long as they give him a chance. But he's just using it to promote his own selfishness. Using another culture to gain his glory back, which is a bit insulting.
Yeah, it's a lot about
doesn't really hold up in 2020.
Yeah, it's a lot bit wonky. It's a lot bit wonky in what it's doing. It's supposed to be suicide for him because the fighters in these aliens are stronger, they're tougher than human beings. There's a reason why human beings aren't part of this. He's no, I'm going to prove myself. And the
alien that he fights is 6'8" or whatever. He's a super tall guy.
Yeah.
And on his IMDb, he's credited as the Shape for Michael Myers in the 2018 Halloween.
What a weird coincidence.
So he's a big guy.
I'm not terribly fond of that movie. That's the thing. 6'8". Obviously, there's people who are 6'8", but it's an uncommon tall height. Whereas if you're telling me this is the average height of one of these aliens, then okay, yes, clearly they're on average much taller than we are. It's kind of similar how the average height of a woman, the average height of a man's a little bit different. It's a little bit taller on the men's side. This is just that, but another step up, where you've got this 6'8" dude.
He's boxing him, so obviously the really tall guy is going to have a bit of a reach.
Yes, unless he has a T-Rex kind of thing going, where his arms are really tiny.
Unless he is an alien.
Yes, he's got the big forehead. But there's also another alien dude because he tries to get into the tournament or the fight, And they basically say, no, we're not letting you, what you said, you know, we're not letting you a part of this, you know, we're not letting you insult this, and tell him to piss off. But this other alien pops up to essentially promote him and become his Mickey, and says, my name is Caliban, and you can enter the fight, it just has to be done through the proper channels with respect. It basically all boils down to, if he yells out a challenge publicly at a fight in front of a crowd, he has to accept, which is like, wait, this is the respectful way to like force him into it?
Yeah, they keep saying that they're full of honor and respect, and like that's the most important thing. But I mean, the Walker comes in like super hot-headed, and he doesn't really respect their culture. He just wants to use it for his own advantage.
Yeah. And
they're like, yes, you are brave and full of honor.
Never really works. And I think one of the downsides of this episode is that usually when another character comes out of the show, and this is true in a lot of Star Trek, especially Next Gen, where you'd have a guest star for an episode, either in the A plot or the B plot or whatever. But the important thing that happens with the guest star would be what it does and says about our main character that we do have there every week. I don't actually think this says that much about Garibaldi. It's all about him. It's all about Walker Smith. It's all about his story.
Right. They do have a good rapport. Like, I like the chemistry between them.
Sure. And there was a couple of banter moments that I liked early on in the episode, because Smith like saves Garibaldi, because Garibaldi's breaking up like a little like pickpocket situation, and he almost
just punches the guys.
Yeah, he almost gets blindsided, but we know he's a boxer, so he can punch. There's an exchange where Garibaldi says, "Oh, I heard a lot of things about you," and you know about the fight and juicing and like being disgraced. And Smith says, "Do you believe it?" And Garibaldi says, "No, of course not." And then they talk for like another minute, and as the scene's ending, when they're arranging to see each other later, and Smith's getting into the elevator, he says to Garibaldi, "Oh, and by the way, I've heard a lot of things about you too." And Garibaldi goes, "Do you believe it?" He's like, "Hell yeah, I do." And then the scene ends. I was like, oh, that was actually pretty funny. That was actually a pretty funny little exchange.
They had nice chemistry. I like when they go to the bar and the bar has a sign for Zima on it, which I thought was hilarious. Just because Zima is, for people who don't know, and it would surprise me if you don't, is it was like an alternative to beer. It's very beer. It's like a cider. It was a clear beer with less alcohol and calories that was popular, I want to say, in like the 80s, maybe early 90s, and then just disappeared, except in Japan. When I lived in Japan, like they had Zima signs everywhere for some reason. Zima is doing really well in Japan, but it failed everywhere else. But I love the idea that that's the thing that survives to the future.
Hi. They also have like seaweed Kit Kats, so Japan has a lot of their own takes on things. It's fine.
They have a ton of different Kit Kats.
Yeah, a lot of weird flavors of Kit Kats. Peanut butter Kit Kat's the only one you need, quite frankly. But
the matcha one's pretty good.
Okay.
It's green.
Sure. There's a tea one as well. It's like a green tea Kit Kat, I'm sure. I remember
seeing. That's what matcha is. Matcha green tea.
Okay. So that's the same thing. All right, fair
Yeah,
enough.
it's a popular flavor because it is really good. And they have strawberry, and that one's pretty good.
Hard to go wrong with strawberry. I mean, I'm more of a chocolate guy than a strawberry guy, but it's hard to go wrong with strawberry.
Sure.
Yeah. Nice flavor. Anyway, so they have a fight after he doesn't get in, and Garibaldi's trying to tell him it was a waste of time, and he's been stupid for trying to do it. I know you want to tell everyone what Walker Smith yells in anger as he leaves the scene.
Well, obviously they can't cuss because this is a TV show. So he yells, "Stroke off." Which is so funny. There's a lot of unintentional humor in this show, and this was one of them.
I said this when you brought it up to me before we started recording, but the term stroke off to me sounds like a really adult competition between two gentlemen who want to have settle a friendly dispute. that's what it sounds like.
I mean, I can see why on paper you can substitute the word, stroke, but it paints a very different image. And it's hilarious.
Anyway, so yes, this other alien dude shows up, Caliban. He's like, I'll sponsor you, basically. Garibaldi eventually makes up with them, and they agree to both be sponsors, and they're both there by his side during the big fight. And the fight's really dragged out, and this is the part that really threw me. Obviously, TV shows typically have an A plot and a B plot, and sometimes even a C plot. and you'll have the scenes cut, the plots cut between them, right? You'll go from one scene from one to a scene to the other. They'll be weaved throughout, and the best episodes of a TV show will have a thematic link, even if they're not connected with characters or anything else, and they have nothing in common otherwise. But there'll be something thematically to link them. Sometimes not. So there's basically nothing thematically to link anything here for a start. But there was something, especially in the back half. But I felt it all episode this time. But especially in the back half when it was cutting to the match, the fight. Right, it was cutting between that and Ivanova mourning her dead father. It was cutting from like action music as I was punching and like crowds going, "Yeah, kill him, yeah!" And it was
it was very odd, very jarring.
Yeah, it was cutting to her in like a shawl, being like, "Oh, my father,"
crying, and
and sad music playing, and I was like, this episode has like it's so disjointed. There's nothing about these scenes that are fitting together. So. That's one of the reasons why it's such a poor episode. It just on its own, never mind, just compared to the other good episodes, which is the majority of them, to be fair. They basically tie, and the alien dude gets them to chant his name instead. He's like, no, chant it for him. He stood his ground. So
got his mojo back.
It's not quite the Rocky ending, but it's close. And he's like, yeah, I'm going back to Earth now because now they all want to hire me for fights because I proved myself. And okay, so the various aliens, and I thought this was really...
the Muay Thai now allows humans.
Yes, and him especially is welcome back anytime he wants to because he's earned their respect. What was weird about this though, apart from the fact that it's all super cliched and slightly like, yeah, I'm kind of on the alien side here. You're kind of just being a dick about this, but it's also that at the end of the episode. We have a scene where the end of Ivanova plots happen and she says goodbye to her uncle. And then out walks Smith with Garibaldi. And then out comes the alien, the head of the Muto who run the thing and says, oh, you've got our respect now, you're welcome at a time. And he walks out and he literally passes by Caliban who then comes out at the same corner. It's like they're waiting in a queue for their moment to come out and say goodbye. Like you couldn't have just cut ahead or I don't know, it feels like... Are y'all just waiting around to say goodbye? Yeah. It felt like a queue. It felt like there was like a row of people just coming out one after the other, too neatly. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that you don't think about when you're engaged in the story, and you're like, "Oh, I'm really into this, and I'm into the character arc. I really love what this is saying about the world or the future of the show or whatever." When I'm this disconnected from the boring ass, like barely a B-level plot. That's not that entertaining to watch because the fighting's not entertaining. Like all the combat when they're actually punching and stuff is boring. No,
plus we don't really know this character, and it's not really a Garibaldi story all that much, other than he doesn't want to see his friend die. And the Ivanova stuff I think is just shot so strange. She has this weird like flashback moment that I don't love the way it's filmed or the way it's put on screen. I mean, I do like a lot of the details that we get about her character still, because I like Ivanova a lot. And, we learned that she's basically alone. She has no one in her family left.
There was a couple of details I liked about her plot, a bit more watching it this time. So her uncle shows up.
Well, she calls him uncle. I don't know if he...
Maybe he's not literally her uncle, but, she refers to him as Uncle Yano. And he... It's like, oh, hey, so I'm here, and I know you couldn't come to Earth for the funeral. You're very busy, you're very duty-filled. And he's kind of like... And not in a bad way, I don't think, but he is kind of like, what you think of as the Jewish uncle. Like, he really is. he has all those sort of, like, mannerisms.
He says, like, we meddle.
Yeah, we meddle, yeah. And I'm not entirely sure if any of that is, like, a bit too much of a cliche. Like, this is something where I'd have to hear some Jewish people tell me if this is, like, too caricature now, or if this is something that this is like a Jewish uncle and it's fine. I don't know. I really don't. But he's very likable when he's on screen. Even when he's doing something that is objectively the wrong thing, and he's doing the wrong thing, and you're like, oh, but he's always doing it for a good reason. Right.
Like there's a moment where Ivanova gets pissed off at him and leaves him, and he has a realization like, oh, I screwed up, and he feels bad, and you kind of feel bad for him, like, oh, like. It's a really sweet guy. Like, he had good intentions. He just didn't realize what he was doing was kind of messed up.
Well, so one of the details that I really like, it's just a little thing, but so there's a reference to Harlan Ellison earlier in the episode when it cuts to Ivanova in her quarters. she's just lying on the couch reading this Harlan Ellison book. And Ellison has worked on the show, I believe, or he's been a consultant or something like that.
Yeah, I think he's a consultant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously that's why they picked an Ellison book, but like she's just lying there reading the book. And the reason why I like that is because in this very scene, the scene where he comes in and says hi and they talk about things, and it gets revealed that she never shot Shiva to mourn the loss of her father, and he's like, oh hey, I'll do it. She immediately says, oh no, I'm swamped, I've got too much work, duties like, backed up. And I'm like, this scene literally started with her on a couch just reading a book and smirking at the book she was reading. So I like that it just kind of neatly like lets the audience know. I mean, it was a lie anyway, but I think shown as visually, no, she does have downtime. She was literally just lying on the couch reading the book.
Yeah.
She was relaxing. So
yeah, and I was wondering
touch.
if it was a loss of faith thing, or if it was just like something to do with the background, her history with her father. Like she just doesn't really want to mourn him because he wasn't good to her, which it turns out to be the latter.
Yeah, it's more or less that. Yeah. Yeah, the whole thing where he like pisses her off is that he goes to Sinclair and says, hey, could you give her some time off, because I know she's really busy, but like she has to mourn her father. And Sinclair doesn't even know that her father died. She's like, oh, she didn't even tell me. And they both kind of like sort of nod in agreement. Yeah, it sounds like her. Like she's very withholding.
Yeah. He's like, sure, like whatever time she needs, she can have. Yeah, obviously.
But when he tells her this at dinner, because when he's doing this, like, oh, she's going to hate this. She's going to hate that. She essentially like went above her head.
Well, not just that. He went like it's like a family member going to your boss.
Yeah. And
giving them personal information that you didn't want to bring into your workplace, which is incredibly inappropriate for someone to make that decision.
Absolutely. And it leads to her crying and yelling at the restaurant. But it does lead to a very good scene, I thought, between her and Sinclair, where he kind of pulls rank and says, no, you're going to listen to what I have to say. It's an order to sit down. Sit down. And says, like, oh, look, it's your choice. Or she says, it's my feelings and how I choose to express them is my choice. And he agrees with that, but he kind of like asks very strongly that before you make that choice, at least make sure you know what it is you're feeling. Like, don't just sort of assume your decision before actually kind of coming to terms with what it is.
Yeah, I actually thought Sinclair was kind of not being such a good guy in the beginning. Like, hey, you should not tell her, no, I'm forcing you to do this. This is a decision that she's clearly made for herself and needs to make for herself. But I mean, he approaches it more or less by the end. Like, I understand like why you feel this way, but as your friend, I want you to make sure that you are addressing something. Because, I mean, for Ivanova's sake, she is not that person. She wants to not address this, and it doesn't seem to be impeding her work in any way. So why should Sinclair, as the captain, force her to take leave?
I think the important part there is that when he's forcing the conversation at the start, that's the part that he's forcing. He's not forcing her to sit Shiva. He's not forcing her to take time off and mourn. He's literally just forcing...
He does say that in the very beginning. He says, like, no, you are taking the 4 days. Like, it's an order. And then at the end of the conversation, he comes around to saying, like, okay, it's up to you, but you should, like, really explore these feelings. Yeah,
no, you're right. I think he does say that, but it kind of comes across to me, he's like, we're definitely having this conversation. You're not getting out of this. Obviously, when she actually explains herself and makes it very clear that they'll, without being angry about it, without saying you're crossing a line by saying I have to do this, kind of like explains it very sincerely and says, like, I respect your friendship, I respect that you care about this, but this is my choice. But no, he does. He acts responsibly, and kind, I guess, which is not surprising for Sinclair. He's typically kind to people he cares about, but. So one of my problems with this plot was always that the plot can be summed up as this: Uncle wants her to do something, keeps asking her to, she keeps saying no, and then all of a sudden she says yes, and then she does it, and then we have those emotional scenes, and that's the end of it. The one thing I will say, watching it this time, that I did appreciate, and again, we're almost at the point where I have not seen any of these episodes. I'm almost caught up to where I got to the first time, but I did kind of appreciate that the reason she gives her uncle because the time he goes to see her once again after this, where he gives her the thing. I can't remember what it was. Something to use in the ritual.
Some family heirloom. Yeah. And
he says, "Look, can you explain to me, your relationship with your father? I want to know, what this was." And why you're doing this, and she explains that this is not because I've lost faith. It's not because I'm not practicing. It's nothing like that. This is purely about not being able to forgive him. It's about the fact that when my mother went through what she did, when my sister died, he wasn't there. He didn't offer love, and he then felt like I abandoned him, even though he'd abandoned me long before that. And he's, Yano's like, oh, so this is, you've not forgiven him, so therefore you can't mourn. And he says that's, tragic, and this is like a dark thing, and it's a shame that we can't get past that. But one of the things that I do like, and I agree that the actual flashback to the dying father scene that we had previous episodes ago was kind of weird and cheesy. I will say, at least everything she said about why she had mixed feelings about him and why she couldn't mourn him was kind of exactly what he apologized for in that scene. And it's her remembering that triggers her saying, you know what, I'll do Shiva, let's do it. Let's do it. It's not that satisfying, but I will at least acknowledge that there is like a tangible link that makes it not complete bullshit.
Yeah, and I appreciate that this is very much a continuing storyline that we got in previous episodes that they've not forgotten about, and they have acknowledged the fact that Ivanova has lost her father, and it is affecting her somehow, even if we don't see it.
Yeah, it kind of puts me back in mind of last episode where, the episode started with her struggling to wake up, and that doesn't necessarily have to end to do with her father, but if you think about all the episodes we've had in between that episode where father died, and then this episode where she's finally sort of let go and told some good stories about him and cried and whatnot, if you think about maybe all the stress she's been having in between those episodes, like, is that all heightened a little bit because she's been sort of dealing with this burden on her mind, subconsciously or otherwise. So
I hope not. I like her fiery personality.
Oh, I think her fire will be there. I wouldn't worry about the fire. I wouldn't worry about the fire. I also like
her sass. I want it to stay.
I like the little touch where she says the speech she gives in English, which is supposed to be in Hebrew, but because Sinclair's there, she's like, I want my good friend Sinclair to understand, so I'm going to say it in English. And I'm like, okay, that neat reason, writers, good idea. But yeah, I mean, it's better than the boxing plot because it means something to her, and there's a couple of nice little details of how they achieve things in it, but for the most part it's not super satisfying, and it clashes so much with the other part of the episode that it feels weird every time we bounce back and forth, I think.
Yeah, we don't have, there's a lot of characters that have been missing from the show for a while now. I think I missed them. We haven't had Veer in a while.
Yeah, Talia's been missing in action for a little bit.
Where's Billy Mummy?
I kind of appreciate that they don't feel the need to force every character into every episode. this acknowledges that also there's no Lando in this episode, and it's not that he's been missing for too long. Sorry, Lando. There's no Lando in this episode. No Jakar in this episode. No Delenn in this episode. We basically...
There is a Narn though. There's a Narn in the audience.
There was also...
Looks like he might be wearing the Jakar mask.
There was a lot of Centauri at the fights as well in the crowd. I appreciate that. Yeah. I appreciate that the crowd was mixed of the different species that we've seen.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And another detail that came up that I hadn't realized before this episode is that the ship is divided by colors and numbers. But they're in red 5 or meet me in blue 6.
I'm sure there's probably like a nerdy map out there of this, but do you think it's like the ship split into like 5 color sections, and then each color section has all the different numbers in it?
Yeah, it's probably like different decks or levels per color.
Yeah.
That's what I'm guessing. That's what the numbers are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
probably.
maybe it's like quadrants or something. It's like primary color quadrants.
I'm wondering if it's like slices of the ship, or like in the sense that like there's different sections that have different purposes. So red 5 or whatever is where they go for their food. Like maybe that's like all the leisure places and restaurants and stuff like that, and
maybe
bars. Yeah.
The red district.
Yeah, maybe. We do hear that there is strippers or like a Hooters out there with all the waitresses having 3 boobs. They heavily imply that in this scene. So.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, because they're talking about how good the burgers were somewhere else. Because he says if you drown it in ketchup, it'll make you think you're back in that place. And then Smith's
good
like,
old Garibaldi and his curviness.
and then Smith's like, is that the one where all the waitresses had 3? He's like, uh-huh.
Oh, I see.
And he's like, oh, you always were a classy guy, Garibaldi. And Garibaldi just kind of shrugs with a mouthful of burger.
We know exactly who he is. The show has not been hiding it.
Mr. Garibaldi. Yeah, it's not a good episode. I mean, there's not really a whole lot more to add.
No, not really.
It's kind of weak. It's an episode where the Ivanova thing, if it was trimmed down, I think there's too much of it. I think you could have cut down the number of scenes we had to get to the point where she accepted to do the thing. And I think if it was just the B plot and an otherwise, another episode that had a good A plot, I think it'd be a fine B plot for that episode. As like a almost 50-50 plot with a really bad plot, it's not enough, and the episode as a whole is like, well, these are done, let's move on to better things next time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Ivanova stuff is very important to her character, and we do, learn a lot about her, and we'll maybe have a different perspective going forward in the show, but the Garibaldi stuff does not matter at all.
I'm going to excite you here a little bit and just tell you that next episode features Delenn, Franklin, Veer, Linear, and Londo. So there's a bunch of the characters are
all right. What about the telepath? I don't even remember her name because it's been so long.
Talia.
Talia.
Not next episode, no. Hold on. Okay. I'll keep going. I'll tell you what episode Talia is in next. Right.
She's apparently only in 3 this whole season.
Is she even in the credits for this one? No, that credit only, that one. All right, we'll get there. Oh, episode 17.
Okay.
She's in episode 17.
I hope she got, decent pay.
Well, she's always listed, even if she is credit only, so I think she does technically get something for that, because she's
that's good.
Regular. But, yeah, well... Anyway, that's Babylon 5. That's TKO. It was not a total knockout of an episode.
Well done.
There's a reason why I said it with that tone. I wasn't thinking I was saying a witty thing. I was saying it in a deflated, I've been defeated manner, which I suppose is kind of a total knockout. But it's a total knockout of, it's not a knockout punch. It's not a total. It's a I've been whittled down by mediocrity, and now I'm passing out. All right. You can like and subscribe. Like is super important on YouTube. It's the free way to support us and help keep all the content coming, because YouTube really values it in terms of its algorithm and sharing us out and things like that. You can, of course, subscribe, comment, get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. And Tara's going to tell you all about how you can support us with real credits, as they would say in the show.
That's right. If you enjoy the reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/milefuzztv. And if you donate as low as $1 per month, you will get access to a ton of other content, including bonus episodes for other shows we do. The Ace, which is our science fiction movie review show. If you're wondering where those B-movie classics are, like You're the Hunter of the Future, please check it out. Time Cop, not really B-movie, but
that is a B movie.
Classic.
No, it's a mainstream B movie, but it's still very much a B movie.
B movie premise, A movie execution.
I love it. I love Time Cop. I'm not willing to agree with that.
And if you donate $5 per month, you will actually get access to these Babylon 5 reviews 1 week early. So you get to be ahead of the curve.
A B movie premise with an A movie execution is Jaws or Alien. Those are B movie premises with
Terminator.
Terminator. Yeah, great example. Yeah.
Time Cop.
Not Time Cop.
Okay, fine. A- execution.
There's a scene in Time Cop where he shoots a guy in the nuts with a shotgun and goes, "Ooh, that had to hurt." That's it? That's your one-liner?
Yeah, but he does the splits to avoid getting electrocuted, like A movie.
I see. Joe, I want to get Van Damme. I want to get him in a recording booth, and I just want you to dub one line so that I'm going to re-edit Time Cop so that he shoots the guy in the nuts with a shotgun and then goes, "Stroke off."
Stroke off.
See, I brought it around. I brought it around to Babylon 5. That's genius level hosting.
You should make that the ending saying for the show.
What? Just tell people to stroke off at the end.
They're fans. They'll get it.
Oh god. All right, that's been us, guys. Thank you very much once again for watching. We always appreciate it. I'm slurring my words now because
You sound like me.
This has been a triple recording, okay? Just getting long in the tooth here. So thank you once again for watching. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Babylon 5. Just don't give away. Don't give away the homeworld.